वेलकम टू सोशल क्लासेस। इस वीडियो में हम बीए थर्ड सेमेस्टर इकोनॉमिक सब्जेक्ट पेपर पब्लिक फाइनेंस एंड इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक्स के मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस डिस्कस करेंगे। मैक्सिमम मार्क्स है 90 एंड टाइम अलाउड है 3 आवर्स। Short questions. What are the two objectives of the evaluation of currency? What is meant by government budget? Give 4 examples of direct taxes. What is meant by custom duties? Is it direct or indirect tax? What are the factors determined to share tax burden between seller and buyer? Americans' tax paying capacity is higher than an Indian. What is the concept involved in this statement? India borrowed rupees 1000 crores from World Bank for repayment. India borrowed again rupees 1000 crores. What is the concept involved in this statement? Why deficit financing causes inflation? Define international economics. America is the capital of abundant nation. India is a labor abundant nation. What are the two techniques for both the nations they can adopt to produce and export goods? Globalization is good to increase free trade or protective trade. What is the main objective of IMF? What is meant by canon of section in public expenditure? Define public finance and private finance. What is meant by tax impact? What is meant by absolute taxable capacity? Why deficit finance generally is inflationary? What is meant by net barter terms of trade? Define dumping. What is meant by labor intensive techniques? What is meant by balance of trade? Give 2 examples of transfer payments in balance of payments accounts. Define gold standard. What is meant by canon of economy and taxation? What is meant by regressive public expenditure? What is meant by progressive taxation? What is meant by terms of trade? What is meant by protective trade? Give 2 examples for visible items in balance of payments. What is meant by depreciation in exchange rate of a currency? Name the 2 Button Wood twins. Any 2 assumptions of Adam Smith trade theory. Defective financing. Determinants of international trade. 4 main canons: public expenditure, commodity terms of trade, fixed exchange rate, objectives of World Bank, features of balance of payments, basis of Allen's theory, public finance, features of a tax, impact of taxation, value added tax, deficit, flexible exchange rate, capital account, real burden of debt, functions of IMF, 5 resources of public debt, 2-factor TOT, unfounded debt, absolute and relative taxable capacity, free trade versus protection, mention the failures of IBRD, theory of trade, define the concept of HO, Weismann-Peacock's law, public versus private finance, difference between BOT and BOP, 4 ways of redemption of public debt, relative versus absolute difference in cost of production, define public finance, define social benefit, what is meant by taxable capacity, is every tax an evil, distinguish between direct and indirect taxes, what is debt trap, define international trade, what is meant by factor endowment, define income terms of trade, define GATT, what is commercial policy, give 2 main objective of IBRD. Unit 1. Explain the normative principles of public expenditure. What is meant by public expenditure? Discuss the causes of its growth in modern times. Discuss the causes of increase in public expenditure in recent years or in modern times. Give reasons for the growth of continuous increases in public expenditure in India. Canons of public expenditure. Discuss in detail the principle of maximum social advantage. Define tax. Explain the main characteristics of a good taxation system. What do you mean by public finance? Discuss in detail the importance of public finance. What is public finance? Explain its scope, importance and nature. What are the characteristics of good tax system? What is tax? Explain the characteristics of a good tax system. Explain briefly canons of taxation in an underdeveloped country. Explain the main canons of taxation. Explain and illustrate the principle of maximum social advantage. What's significance? Explain the principle of maximum social advantage. Explain Dalton's principle of maximum social advantage and its significance. What do you understand by public expenditure? What are the causes of growth of public expenditure in developing countries? Unit 2. Discuss the demand and supply theory of incidence of taxation. Explain the absolute and relative taxable capacity. What do you mean by taxable capacity? What factors determine the taxable capacity of a country? Define taxable capacity factors affecting taxable capacity of a country like India. What is the difference between impact and incidence of taxation? Discuss the modern theory of incidence of taxation. What are the factors determine taxable capacity? What is meant by incidence of tax? Explain the factors which influence incidence and shifting of taxation. How do you think the public debt is a burden? Explain. Types of public debt, methods of redemption of public debt. Explain the methods of debt redemption. Discuss the role of public debt in a developing country. Explain deficit financing. How far deficit financing helps the country like India for its development. What is meant by deficit financing? Discuss its role in the economic development of a country like India. What are the objectives and limitations of deficit financing? Examine its role in economic development of underdeveloped countries. Unit 3. Discuss classical theory of international trade. Discuss the principle of reciprocal demand in the theory of international trade. Critically examine Heckscher-Ohlin theory of international trade. Explain the various terms of trade with reference to current economic situation. Discuss in detail theory of reciprocal demand. Explain the offer curve. Impact of WTO on less developed countries. Explain the role of WTO in the context of solving trade-related problems of less developed nations. How has the WTO functioned recently? What do you understand by World Trade Organization? Discuss its implications for developing countries with special reference to India. What is foreign trade policy? What factors must be considered to formulate it? Critically examine theory of comparative costs of international trade. What is meant by free trade? What are the advantages and disadvantages of free trade? Critically examine the theory of comparative cost of international trade. Explain the modern theory of international trade. Briefly explain free trade versus protection. On what factors does the balance of payments depend? Explain the causes of deficit in balance of payments account and suggest measures to reduce the deficit in balance of payments. Indicate the chief features of IMF. Has its membership been beneficial to India? Discuss in detail the working of IMF and also discuss its achievement. Discuss in detail the functions and achievements of IMF and their objectives. Explain the factors that are responsible for fluctuations in the rate of exchange. Are there any limit to such fluctuations? Discuss the objective, achievements and failures of the IBRD. Discuss the causes of adverse balance of payment. Suggest methods to control it. What is meant by balance of payments? Analyze the causes of adverse balance of payments. How is it corrected? How balance of payments differ from the balance of trade. Discuss the purchasing power parity theory of rate of exchange. What do you mean by rate of exchange? How is it determined by purchasing power parity theory? What do you mean by rate of exchange? How is it determined by purchasing power parity theory? Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next video. अगर आपको कोई भी सब्जेक्ट के मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस की वीडियो चाहिए तो आप उसे कमेंट कर हमें बता सकते हैं. थैंक यू.